Should we start? Kia ora, Kath. How are you?
Kia ora. Kei te pai.
Yeah, me too, just. We've just completed our evidence-based practice module, which was really interesting. And we're just meeting today to maybe share some ideas of what we got out of this module and maybe tease out any further things we might want to explore.
Excuse me.
But yeah, you made a really good start with the first question.
Well, I'll put my hand up here and I'll say that I didn't really know much about this at all. So I did learn a lot about these three circles here: the research, the practitioner knowledge, and what was the third one? Can you go up a little bit more?
Yeah.
There? Child, young persons and family, right. I mean, now that I look at it and think about it, I mean, it does make perfect sense. But yeah, I'd sort of heard about it, but didn't really know that there were those three elements to it. So, I mean, that was good learning for me, really. Yeah,
it was good for me too, just to clarify that evidence-based practice doesn't just have to come from a research, foundation, but also needs to include whānau, but also the actual practitioner's experience and perspective as well. So I appreciated that.
Absolutely. No, I think it's a great little model there. So how might we use your research C child P practical knowledge? Is that right? Circles in your work?
Or practitioner knowledge, teacher knowledge.
Oh, sorry, practitioner. Yeah. So I just looked at He Pikuro there. When we get allocated cases, we do the whanangatanga one with the whānau, build connections, and with the teacher to build a picture of what's happening for that student, and of course all our observations and that sort of thing, which is really important. And then carry out those different observations, playground, and then the kohi, well, that's the kohi, isn't it? And then we sit down with the teacher and the whānau and sort of plan from there, sort of put it all on the table, really, isn't it?
Yeah. I definitely agree that starting with the whānau and the child is your starting point, and then you bring your knowledge to that. Then you might go and look at the research behind, your hypothesis maybe of any intervention. So yeah, totally agree, and it does link in pretty well with He Pikuro. I sort of could see those three considerations that you mentioned: the child and whānau, the practitioner knowledge, the research. But I see it also in that process mentioned there will be some trial and error, and you will need to kind of mediate some of the information to suit, which good. I guess, I mentioned here just starting with the ecological perspective of, child, student and whānau. But yeah, that led into the Sonia McFarlane model.
Yeah, just going back a little bit, I suppose I've got a case at the moment that I'm thinking about, a very unhappy child at a school, but I think one of the things that I'm really looking at is to sort of firm up the positive behaviour for learning. So that would come under the practitioner knowledge. I mean, the school, say they're a PB4L school, but it's not something that hits you when you walk in. I can't see their values and can't see it's been taught in classes and that sort of thing. So, and that ties in everything, because it's very well researched program. And I think if schools say they're going to do it, they really need to embrace it, not just use it for, bits of it. I think trying to, focus on the positive as well. So that's something I sort of want to strengthen in my own practice when I go around to schools, rather than me coming in and telling them what to do.
Yeah. And
them coming to,
you're dead right. And knowing what good practice looks like is really crucial to to be able to spot when it's been
Absolutely.
done well and when there's an opportunity to improve.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Now, the Sonia McFarlane was really good because they, first it was the play-based learning. I looked at the play-based learning, so that was up a little bit, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, I see play-based learning a lot when I go around to different schools, but I see variations of it. Some play-based schools, the kids just seem to be playing and running around, and then others, it seems to be definite. The teachers are involved and they're actually working on something and developing that oral language. So, so when I researched it, it said that that it wasn't totally an evidence-based program. Well, that's what the research I found. But then other people would say that it totally is. So I don't know. Do you know much about it? Have you seen much about it?
I did a similar thing to you because I've seen play-based learning happening in a number of schools. I've seen schools who are really quite almost evangelical about it.
Yeah.
And I've seen some play-based learning that looks quite purposeful and sort of has a structure to it, and others that looks kind of more like free play.
Yeah,
so
well, that's right.
A real range of practices out there about it. But yeah, it was interesting. I did the same as you. I kind of did a bit of a look for what the research is out there, and I wasn't overwhelmed with kind of peer-reviewed studies, but I found a lot of I guess positive articles, journal articles, kind of more like newspaper magazine articles that were in support. And I see one of the student exemplars on the Massey course was based around her positive view of play-based learning. And I know that Nathan Wallace, Nathan McCarty-Wallace,
yes,
is quite
absolutely.
a strong supporter of play-based learning. I think he's sort of up to the age of sort of 7. He seems to think that there can be real benefits for. And I read a really interesting article about the story of students doing kind of worksheets versus kind of play-based learning. And Nathan Wallace in my head, that he really is a big advocate for those open-ended kind of types of play, like Lego and things like that, where there is no right or wrong outcome, where students can play and take risks without fear of getting it wrong. And that how crucial that is for kind of their emotional
for their development,
regulation and development at that age.
But it takes me back a little bit to when I was a young teacher and we used to do developmental in junior classes, where it was very similar. There was painting and dough, and there was water and sand and all those wonderful things that little kids could experience. And then often that would lead into your writing. So they would have an experience, they might make something with the dough or play with the sand, and then they'd write about what that felt like. So they'd speak about it. You'd go around to the little groups and speak to the students about it. You'd be feeding in the language all the time about how the sand was gritty and how the water felt freezing cold on their fingers and that sort of thing. So you were always, you had in your mind about what you wanted, and you knew the students. So you knew that maybe, oral language was really important. And then, of course, that would lead into your, maybe your shared writing or your individual writing, and that would become your reading as well. And it was often around a theme. If you'd been to the beach and collected shells, well, you'd use that in your play-based too. So it was all, it was a sort of a theme, I suppose. Yeah. And that sort of went out the door, and now this come in. But I see great links between those things. I think that oral language was a big part of developmental, and I see it as the same, especially with Nathan McCarty-Wallace and what he says, because he's very into the oral language development too.
Yeah, I responded to that question about how do you work out whether practices are evidence-based. But essentially, I guess it was important to reflect on those models that were were presented earlier, the 3 circles model of
Yeah,
yes, there's
right.
there's a research supporting it, but there's also
Component to it.
maybe a cohort of experienced teachers and your experience supporting those observations, but also that whānau and community are sort of behind the initiative as well. And I sort of thought that was actually quite good. I kind of made me think about initiatives that maybe have been implemented without those 3 things, and national standards actually came to mind for me. that didn't actually
was very forced on everybody, wasn't it? Yeah.
Didn't actually have a strong research supporting it. In fact, quite a lot of research had actually said this can be quite counterproductive. But they still went ahead and implemented
and did it. Yeah. But see, the other one we looked at was the UDL.
Right.
And I mean, that seems to be very evidence-based. I think, there's nobody that could really not agree with that UDL is a good thing.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, we have to be inclusive and look at the child and their needs rather than just one size fits all. So, so I thought those were two quite good examples, really.
Yeah, it's interesting that both play-based and UDL seem to have quite a lot of support, but they're still being done on really quite variably out there in the teaching world in schools.
Very true. Yeah.
So there's people that go, I know UDL, but they're not there yet.
Yeah. No. Maybe there's still a bit of confusion about how to put it into practice. I mean, often things are great in theory and you can read about them and think, oh, that's good. But then when you actually get into your classroom, you think, well, how am I actually going to do this? Yeah. How's it going to work for me and the student? So, yeah.
Yeah, the other one that popped up for me was the kind of innovative learning environments, or the open, or some that just became open plan learning environments. I see, quite a lot of, support certainly on the ministry websites for this, and, about the design and planning and how it can cater for a lot of students. But in practical reality, I've seen a lot of students, particularly in our field, really struggle in those environments and not be catered for. So that was another one that kind of came up. So I did appreciate that model actually of the 3, that it's not just an academic research that's enough. It actually has to be experienced teacher, practice and observation, and then connecting them with whānau and community. So that evidence base really, it did shift my thinking a bit actually.
I think, what we used to do a lot and years ago was to go around to different schools and see teachers teaching these things. And, there was a lot more sharing of ideas rather than, being in our silos as we talk about. So I think, if we could get, we're lucky because we go around and do a lot of, observing in different schools, but I don't know if teachers do anymore. There's probably a time thing.
Yeah, do you think that that has gotten, that has lessened due to just time pressure?
Yeah, I think it probably has. And there's also, with tomorrow's schools and zoning and people being worried about losing students if they share their ideas, and one school being better than another, and there's all that sort of thing that came.
That competitiveness. Yeah,
which shouldn't be in education at all, but I'm afraid it is. That's just the reality of it. This was really interesting, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The eating a whai mōhio. Yeah. No, I didn't know anything about this either.
No, I mean, it was
in the puno and the aroha, wasn't it?
Yeah,
you see, the McFarlanes didn't really like that first model, did they? Because they thought that it didn't have enough Māori values in it. So, which is fair enough. So, they wanted to add in these ones, I think. Yeah, so I found that really interesting reading what they had to say there.
Yeah, it kept the structure pretty similar. The 3.
Yeah, they did, didn't they?
The 3 circles and the research.
Interacting circles, all linked to Te Tiriti. Yeah, which is really good. So did I write anything there? Or?
Yeah, yes, you did there.
Oh, and you did too before me. So what did you write?
Well, I just said that it was a more culturally responsive model, particularly responding to Māori culture. It still incorporates the 3 circles framework, but removes possible barriers to Māori by incorporating Māori concepts.
Māori values.
And it uses those, I guess, highly regarded concepts, which are included as well, tika, something being true and correct, pono being about being fair and
just and honest,
and aroha being about that care and compassion, and but that linked into sort of whānau and connecting to the human aspect. So it was a change in language, but I guess in Te Ao Māori, language kind of changes the concept too. So it is
it does, doesn't it? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think I said pretty much there. Yeah, which pretty much was the same. And then they asked us, I thought these questions were pretty important. Well, I've got a 4, but they're under 4. Are we doing work that's relevant and of real value to Māori? Will our interventions make a positive difference that is needed, and will we uphold the vision of inclusive education? So just always good to have that in the back of our mind, I thought.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, thinking about the questions, these research, it's evident that the status quo needs to change. But again, I think this research was done a while ago, wasn't it?
McFarlane.
2013. So that's
right.
So that's 9 years ago now, isn't it?
That's
so
right.
Things are moving along.
It'd be interesting to see how much they've actually changed, though.
Well, yeah, that's true too. Or whether we've sort of got stuck in one place with this. Yeah. No, I thought that was really interesting, the way the two sort of tied in together.
Yeah, and thinking about this, having that that aroha whānau aspect as part of evidence-based practice, I'm just thinking what ways we could incorporate that more. Quite often teachers would plan purely in a school context on their own or with colleagues. They would look at research, they would discuss it together, and then they would implement it. This really asks for interaction from whānau, doesn't it? And connection to them and consultation. So I wonder how many schools could say they
are doing that.
They do that.
Hand on heart, that they actually do that.
Yeah. But the power, and obviously more effort, but the power of doing it well would be quite significant, wouldn't it? Thinking about that consultation, but also drawing in, those funds of knowledge concepts that we were talking about earlier as well.
But really, because what's the curriculum that you work on, Grant? You've got a community sort of curriculum that you develop.
Every school should have their own localised curriculum.
Yeah, so every school should have their localised curriculum. So you should hope that within that localised curriculum, that aroha and the whānau would be involved in that.
Yeah,
would you say that your school is? Do you have people from your community come in, or?
No, I think I think
not as much.
One of the reasons why we're having this big curricular review.
Okay, so no, well,
Grant's Grant work in a school?
Yeah, he's the principal of a school, so he doesn't sort of feel that happens as much maybe as it should.
Yeah.
But I think, we've both come from Rotorua quite recently, and I very much think it did happen there, because we were right in the middle of Ngāti Whakawe land, and their marae were very close to where the school was. So the students were able to go and stay on that marae. There was local elders who would speak to them. So
what an asset.
Very, very much, it was amazing, very much immersed in their culture. The school was 70% Māori, I think.
Wow.
And a lot of Ngāti Whakaue students were at that school. So,
strong connection.
yeah, hugely. And that's what we both found when we came down here, that there weren't those, well, I suppose there was a bit at your school, wasn't there, to Ngāti Toa, but really, yes and no, but not really anything like we'd experienced before.
Right, yeah. It's quite an must be quite an asset if you can harness that, you know, and tap into that. Huge asset.
Yeah. You know, and huge support for the tamariki.
Right.
Because we'd have special assemblies just for the Māori children, for Māori achievement. And
oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yeah, this was all part of the PB4L.
And part of the association, the way it moved.
Well, the association with the iwi. Yeah. And, you know, the old queer and Karawa would come and to support their moko and everything. And it was a big deal, really. But it really pushed Māori achievement to the top of the ladder at that school, and everybody knew.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that sort of focus, I just haven't seen it.
Yeah.
Which is a pity. But yeah, hopefully it'll come. Yeah.
Well, it will with conscious effort.
Yeah, it's not going to just come, is it? No. Yeah, true.
And so
there was just a few journal articles and things, weren't there, that we found.
I don't know which ones you go to, but I took quite a few of the ones that were on there, because they were pretty standard ones, like NZCER and the MOE website. The Office of the Children's Commissioner has popped up quite a few times for me in doing this research. Yeah,
I saw that there too. Yeah, it has, isn't it? I didn't really know.
No, before I did this study, I didn't know. TKI, I'm a regular user of TKI, and I hadn't previously
core
used
education
core that much.
Yeah.
That I actually found some really good research on the OECD .org website about education. There's some really comprehensive reports.
Yeah.
I just put two there that I use, which is, you know, the understood.org and PBIS World. But
positive behaviour interventions there, that's another good one there, isn't it?
Yeah. Which is really good. But yeah, I could see I get quite interested in evidence-based practice and gathering data and pulling it all together. But I would love to do some more work and best practice on how to incorporate sort of whānau and that aroha strand and working in schools.
Oh, very much so. Yeah, because I think it's valuable, and that's what a lot of Māori students came through from that Under the Bridge video that we watched for another module about how the whanaungatanga, the whakawhanaungatanga was so important to have their whānau involved in their schooling. So there wasn't a them and us type thing. Yeah, the papakura one.
Yeah, well, that was the thing I saw there. There was a real strength in the community that was there. High Māori, Pacific Island, and it was being tapped into, but probably could be built on more. But really interesting module. I enjoyed that. Was there anything else?
No, it was a good one, wasn't it? Yeah.
That came out
it was
for
a
you?
lot of learning for me. Because I didn't know about the 3 circles, and I didn't know about the McFarlane 3 circles either.
Yeah,
so
I'll remember that.
This gives you a bit more insight, doesn't it, into what you're doing and why you're doing it and how it should be done. So I thought that was great. Yeah, very good.
Oh, great. Okay. Well, thanks very much for that.
Thank you. Well, that's good. Okay.